I recognize myself for 5 minutes for my second round of questioning. And as you heard in my opening statement, addressing the National Cyber Workforce Challenge is one of my biggest priorities as chairman of this subcommittee. Part of that difficulty is addressing it is figuring out where to start. I think we've had some great testimony here today, but it's not just, we can't solve it here alone on the federal level. It can't be done alone on the private sector level, can't be done alone on the education level. It's the all of the above approach I think there has to be. But what this subcommittee does oversee certain agencies in the federal government and specifically CISA. So I'll start with Ms. Wisniewski. In your view, how should the federal government prioritize its efforts to address this issue? And specifically, what should CISA's role be in the equation?
So I think that we have to continue, actually, I think we need more resources, right? More focus, more investment in actually solving the challenge. So again, innovative workforce strategies. Particularly for CISA, CISA has an opportunity to really serve as a convener and serve as, the ringleader, if you will, in terms of really being able to drive all of the things that we've talked about today. I think that there are just many, I think CISA has done a good job of being an example of not only the good, bad, and the ugly in terms of they have their own workforce challenges, right, of recruiting people in. So, I mean, it's there, right? And so, but I think CISA has a real leadership role here. And we look forward to deeper partnership with CISA and more opportunities, and also with the Office of the National Cyber Director. We have a deep partnership with them. We think the combination of those two units to serve as a leader is really important. And then actually, this is also a global game, right? And so we as the United States really need to take serious if we want to be a leader here, because we should be.
Does anybody else want to comment on that? Sure, Ms. Thwart.
I'll just quickly add, I agree with her comments. I think, big thing for CISA is to make sure they have the right expertise in the room to really help look at how we can transform the cyber workforce in America. I think a great example of this is we've seen, again, the CISA Cybersecurity Advisory Committee has the subcommittee on transforming the cyber workforce, but we need to make sure that we have HR professionals at the table, that we have folks from academia to really take a look at things that are working in the federal government and industry and really figure out how we can tactically address this issue.
Yeah, I will just add that, we've had a great relationship with CISA, and their grant really propelled us into some new territory, and we proved that we could do it. And we're looking forward to continue to work with CISA and other government agencies to continue to find non-traditional talent and to help solve this problem.
I would wholeheartedly agree with everything that everyone else has already said. The only thing that I would add is that I think CISA is in a unique position to help make all of the great information that is already out there as accessible as possible. I think that there's no shortage of resources and information that lots of people have already provided in the federal government to support cybersecurity workforce development, but I think that at times it can also be information overload. And so I think that CISA could serve as that convener of both stakeholders, but also information to make it as easy as possible to access the tools and resources that are most valuable. The other comment I would make on this is that I think CISA is also in a unique position to provide information to employers. I think we have over-indexed on providing information for other stakeholders and under-indexed on providing information, tools, and standards for employers so that they know how to be responsible recruiters and developers of cybersecurity talent.
Thank you all. And one final question, because I have about a minute left. But in our first hearing of this committee, we heard from someone from the Bank Policy Institute that cyber professionals in their field are spending 40% or more of their time on compliance. Ms. Wisniewski, earlier in your response, you mentioned additional cyber regulations will likely worsen the workforce problem. And right now we're seeing, the National Cyber Strategy coming out of the White House focuses a lot on regulation. The Energy and Commerce Committee just recently passed a bill out of committee, adding a new regulation on reporting. How can Congress help reduce this additional burden on a workforce that is already stretched so thin?
So I do think that there's an opportunity for Congress to actually partner with the regulatory environment to really, I think, appreciate what is really important here, because unless we can do more, so what often happens, right, is the regulatory environment kind of works in its own little world, and then you've got, you know, policymakers working in a different world. In this case, there needs to be a lot more synergy so that there can actually, if there is going to be more regulations coming, that those regulations actually can be fulfilled. Because if there's no one to meet the regulation, then, you know, how is that going to solve? The other challenge, I think, is that we really, because of the environment in cyber, we really need to make sure that we're not building a checklist environment where it's just a checklist for compliance, because then you're just not, you're missing the point. You're actually not protecting the world. So I think more synergy there, and again, just more investment on the workforce development.
Thank you. I'm out of time, but I'm the chairman, so you can go ahead, Ms. Fletcher.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's really a call for harmonization of these regulations and removing duplication. I think that's key. And I agree. I think a big part of this, NIST has done a lot of work around building the cybersecurity framework, the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education, the AI risk management framework. We need to continue to fund that, but also, to her earlier point, frameworks are not meant to be compliance documents, so making sure that these are best practices that we can incorporate into our businesses and make sure we're fostering good cyber hygiene practices.
Thank you very much. So I want to say I thank the valuable testimony.